Brother, let me say this to you directly first. The problem is not that you don't know what to say to women. You're not lacking words, and you are not lacking ideas. The real issue lies in what stands behind your words. That is your energy, the psychological state you bring into the conversation. Many men speak a lot, speak politely, try very hard to sound interesting, yet every word they say has no force. It sounds acceptable, but it leaves no weight in the other person's mind, and you can feel that very clearly through her eyes, still polite, still nodding, but not truly staying with you. The reality is, the modern female brain does not evaluate men through words first. It evaluates through the state. The moment you enter a conversation, she has barely heard you speak, but she has already read a great deal. Whether you are tense, whether you are rushed, whether you need her reaction in order to feel okay about yourself. These signals happen in silence, and they move faster than any sentence. This is why there are men who speak very little, yet every word they say slows the room down, while others speak endlessly and become duller with every sentence. According to recent research on social dominance and emotional regulation, a person who can maintain a stable internal state during interaction is naturally perceived as the one setting the rhythm, not because he dominates or asserts superiority, but because the human brain instinctively trusts someone who is not being dragged by emotion. When you remain calm, unhurried, without needing to be liked immediately, you're signaling that your inner world is solid enough to not require permission from anyone, and in the world of attraction, that is an extremely strong signal. On the other hand, if you enter a conversation wanting her to like you, wanting her response, wanting her validation of your worth, no matter how smoothly you speak, you have unconsciously handed her the lead. From that moment on, you're no longer in a proactive position. You become the one reacting, waiting, adjusting yourself to her expressions and emotions. And women sense this very quickly, often faster than you do. Brother, remember this core truth. Words are only the vehicle. Inner state is the power. When you understand this, from this point forward, every conversation you have will begin to change, not because you speak better, but because you carry a weight that cannot be ignored. There is another truth most men overlook. Women do not listen to you in the way you think they do. She does not prioritize what you say first. What she feels first is what state you are in. It does not matter how well you speak if your internal state is weak. Her brain will automatically filter you out. Modern psychology calls this phenomenon emotional incongruence, when words and internal state do not match. A very familiar example: your mouth speaks confidence, but your eyes scan for approval. Your breathing is rushed, your words come out hurried. Her brain immediately detects it, and once detected, there is almost no way to reverse it. Within the first 3 to 5 seconds of an interaction before you even finish a complete sentence, her brain has already read you. Not your content, but your signals. Are you rushing to impress? Are you waiting for her reaction to know whether you're doing it right? And most importantly, are you stable, or is your state dependent on her gaze, her attitude, and her emotions? These 3 signals occur extremely fast, quietly, and they are almost impossible to fake. In modern behavioral psychology, this is called pre-verbal evaluation that happens before language. It means that before your words ever have a chance to be logically processed, your internal state has already been scored. And this is why many men, the harder they try to speak well, the more they explain, the more they reveal that they need approval. Unconsciously, they send a very clear message: I need your reaction in order to feel okay. Women do not dislike kindness, and they do not dislike men who speak gently. What turns them off is the feeling that a man cannot stand firmly in his own state. When you need her smile to keep talking, when you need her nod to feel secure, when you speak. But at the same time, monitor her reaction to adjust yourself. From the brain's perspective, this is not a leader. This is someone searching for direction. And to be very clear, this has nothing to do with whether you're rich or poor, handsome or average. It has everything to do with how you manage your own emotional state. A man who can hold a stable state unhurried, not pleading, not seeking permission to be heard, will naturally be perceived as someone with weight. He does not need to show off or speak loudly. He simply does not need her response in order to feel valuable. Here is a gentle warning for you. You may not have said much yet, but if the energy you bring is the energy of asking permission, asking for attention, asking to be liked. Then here is a truth that is hard to hear, but if you do not hear it now, you will repeat it for a very long time in your life. It is not that women hate good men. It is not that they enjoy being treated badly. The issue lies elsewhere. Desire does not live in absolute safety. It does not grow in an environment where everything is already understood, already predictable, already fully controlled, and unfortunately this is exactly where many nice guys walk into without realizing it. When a man enters a conversation with the mindset of maintaining harmony at all costs, he begins doing very familiar things. He overexplains because he is afraid of being misunderstood. He listens like a therapist, trying to empathize, soothe, and fix her emotions. He agrees constantly, nods constantly, and avoids even the smallest tension that might make her uncomfortable. On the surface, this looks kind, mature, and caring. But on a deeper level, he is sending a very clear message: I am willing to adjust myself in order to keep her. And when he does this long enough, he stops being a masculine presence. He becomes a form of emotional service. Someone who is there when she is sad, a safe place for emotional dumping, someone always ready to listen, comfort, explain, and understand. And precisely because he is always there in this way, he becomes too predictable. Every reaction of his can be anticipated. When she feels cold, he asks. When she goes silent, he worries. When she is irritated, he tries to make peace. And in a woman's mind, anything that is completely predictable is very difficult to desire. The friend zone is not a pit for unlucky men. It is a very logical result of a man placing his emotions beneath a woman's emotions. When she knows for certain that you will always be there, always react, always prioritize her emotional state over your own, she no longer has to adjust anything. Everything is under control, and once something is fully controlled, desire dies very quickly. Not because she is cruel, but because the human brain is wired this way. Many men do not understand why they are constantly pushed into the role of the good friend, the nice brother, the guy who always understands me. They ask themselves what they did wrong. The answer is this: you did nothing wrong in a moral sense. Your mistake was bringing too much emotion into the game from the very beginning. You gave away too much attention, too much stability, too much presence without ever allowing her to feel the need to adjust herself in order to keep you. Desire needs space to breathe. It needs a bit of unease, a bit of uncertainty, a sense that the man in front of her cannot be possessed immediately. When you do everything to avoid making her uncomfortable, you unknowingly kill the very thing that could make her desire you. Masculine presence is not about speaking loudly or acting superior. It is the ability to remain grounded in your own state even when that creates a little tension. Let me summarize it for you in one sentence so you remember it. Women can appreciate kindness. They can be grateful for care. But what they desire is a presence that forces them to adjust, to pay attention, to question. When you stop being a man who is easy to predict and easy to control, desire finally has room to exist. At this point, you do not need to try to do anything more. You only need to stop doing certain things you have been doing all along. Because most men do not lack effort, they are simply placing their effort in the wrong place. They react too quickly, too much, and too often. When a woman makes a vague comment, they rushes to explain. When the air goes quiet, they rush to fill it. When she grows cold, they panic internally and rush to fix the situation. And these reactions reveal a simple truth. Your state is not in your own hands. A man with presence is not someone who talks more or talks better. He is someone who does not rush to fill the silence. He can stand still in moments without feedback. He does not see pauses as threats that must be managed. To him, silence is just silence. When he is not compelled to fill it, the other person's mind begins to notice. The atmosphere slows down, the rhythm shifts, and naturally, his presence becomes more distinct. A man with presence also does not explain himself just to protect his image. He does not panic about being misunderstood. He understands that a man who has to explain too much is a man who fears losing his position. When you stop trying to explain everything, you send a powerful signal: I am okay with myself, even if you do not understand me immediately. This is a threshold many men are afraid to cross. Not explaining creates a bit of tension, but it is precisely that tension that creates respect. And most importantly, a man with presence does not panic when she grows cold. When she speaks less, responds more slowly, or becomes distant, he does not interpret it as a red alert about his own value. According to self-regulation theory, a person who can regulate his own emotions is automatically perceived by the other person's brain as occupying a higher position in the psychological hierarchy, not because he is above her, but because he does not allow her emotions to dictate his state. He maintains his rhythm, he stays calm, and it is exactly that calmness that creates presence. When you stop chasing her reactions, the game flips without you even realizing it. Before, you spoke to see what she thought. Now, she begins paying attention to how you respond. Before, your eyes searched for validation. Now, her eyes search for signals from you. Not because you are playing psychological games, but because you have placed yourself back where you belong, the position of a man who leads himself. The feeling at this point is very different. You are not trying to impress. You are not trying to perform the best version of yourself. You are simply present. And when a man is fully present without asking permission, without rushing, without reacting to external emotions, that presence alone already communicates more than words ever could. From here, one extremely important thing needs to be said so you do not lose your direction. Desire in 2025 no longer operates on the idea that whoever speaks better wins. The era of old pick-up memorizing compliments, jokes, scripted responses ended long ago. Women today hear too many smooth words and see too many men trying to appear interesting. What their brains respond to most strongly is no longer what is said, but what remains unsaid. Desire is triggered when the mind has to work, when emotion does not have an immediate answer. Psychologically, desire begins to live when two factors appear at the same time. The first is cognitive tension her brain has to process, think, and search for meaning behind your behavior. The second is emotional ambiguity. She cannot immediately predict what you are thinking, what you want, or how you will respond. When both factors exist together, the brain cannot close the file on you, and whatever cannot be closed continues to reopen itself in the mind. This is why words are becoming less important than how you speak, whether your pace is rushed or slow, whether you dare to pause mid-sentence, whether you can tolerate a few seconds of silence without panicking, whether your eye contact is asking permission, scanning for reactions, or simply looking as a man who is grounded within himself. These elements are outside of language, yet they determine the entire emotional experience she receives. Attractive modern men do not speak more than others. They speak less, but they leave more space. That space is not a lack. It is a room for her imagination to begin working. When you say everything, explain everything, reveal everything, her brain has nothing left to do. But when you stop halfway, when you do not frame everything neatly, her brain automatically continues the missing part, and from that moment, you may have stepped out of the conversation, yet you remain inside her mind. Many men cannot tolerate empty space. They are afraid of silence. They are afraid of being misunderstood. They fear that if they do not say more, they will lose connection. So they keep talking, keep explaining, soften the atmosphere, create absolute comfort. But it is precisely that excessive comfort that kills desire the fastest. Because anything without friction, without resistance, without something that needs to be processed, the brain simply lets it pass. You need to understand this difference so you don't shoot yourself in the foot. Men want to understand the world. They feel at ease when everything is clear, logical, and structured. Women, at a deeper layer, connect through feeling and imagination. They do not need you to explain everything clearly. They need sensation, atmosphere, rhythm, something that wakes up both the brain and emotion. When you understand this, you stop trying to say the right thing. You begin to speak with rhythm, and when the rhythm is right, desire appears on its own without force. At this point, you need to hear one thing clearly so you do not misunderstand. An open loop is not a dirty trick, nor is it a cheap psychological manipulation. The essence of an open loop is very simple. It is not closing the emotion too early, not explaining everything, not concluding everything immediately. When emotion remains open, when the brain is unfinished, it will automatically return to complete the story. That is how the human mind works. It is not a tactic. Just one suggestive statement, combined with silence at the right moment, and her brain will do the rest. The biggest problem for many men is that after saying something with weight, they ruin it by continuing to talk. They laugh to reduce tension. They explain to avoid misunderstanding. They add information because they fear heaviness in the air. But the moment they add more words, the loop gets closed, emotion is released, tension disappears, and what had the potential to grow is suffocated on the spot. An open loop works best when you are calm enough to stop. Not stopping to create discomfort, but stopping because you do not need to say more to be understood. When you can remain still for a few seconds of silence, without changing facial expression, without awkward laughter, without trying to soothe, the woman's brain starts working. She wonders what you are thinking. She interprets the meaning of what you said, and in that process, her emotion attaches to you without you needing to do anything more. Paired with the open loop is the intentional absence. And you must distinguish this very clearly. Absence is not disappearing out of anger. It is not childish ghosting to provoke a reaction. Absence here means withdrawing energy deliberately. You do not appear constantly. You do not text just to maintain presence at all costs. You allow space for emotion to settle and expand. In psychology, this is called the perceived value gap. Simply put, when something is not always available, the brain automatically assigns it a higher value. Not because of artificial scarcity, but because you are not pouring your entire presence outward. When you withdraw at the right moment, her mind begins to pull you inward. She starts replaying moments, rerunning interactions, asking herself questions. Let me close this part for you with one very short sentence. When you do not need to be constantly present to maintain a connection, the strongest connection quietly forms inside her mind. At this point, you must understand one thing very clearly so you do not go in the wrong direction. The goal of everything you have just heard is not to dominate women, not to control anyone, manipulate anyone, or prove that you are superior. Real power does not lie in controlling others. It lies in not needing to. The true goal is self-mastery. It is not asking permission to exist in a conversation. It is not selling your energy, time, and emotions just to be liked. When you stop chasing validation, you naturally become harder to pull off your axis. And in the human world, the one who is not easily pulled, that one has force. When you stand firmly on your own axis, everything reorganizes itself automatically. Those who need to control you will leave because they no longer have leverage. Those who crave power will begin to adjust because they no longer hold the lead. And those who are compatible, those who do not require power games, will step in naturally. Not because you are trying to attract, but because you are no longer pushing them away with instability. Remember this line and carry it with you. When you stop speaking in order to be chosen, your words begin to carry weight, and attraction is simply the consequence.